Chapter 3 of The Plum and the Golden Vase. Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. Definitely beat out the princess for accepting bribes, and set a trap for the prodigal son to pick him up privately. The poem says, they didn't know each other at first, but Zusi seems to be in love. Make love in front of the cup, love your eyes at the bottom of the flower. Duan was surprised by the new situation and asked about his old name. The shadow contains tonight's candle. And my thoughts are mixed. Wang Po of Ximen Xingyang wanted to meet the female son, so she said, Goddess, please tell me if this thing is done. I will give you 10 taels of silver. Wang Po said, Master, listen. I said, the word exposure is the most difficult. What is exposure? For example, it is commonly known as infidelity. It only works if you have 5 things. The first thing is Panan's appearance. The second is to have a large amount of licensed goods. The third is to be as rich as Deng Tong. The fourth is to be young, and to be as soft and patient as a needle. The fifth is to have spare time. These 5 things are called Pan Donkey and Deng Shao. It's all done. And this matter will be achieved. Simon King said, to tell you the truth, I had these 5 things. The first one, although my appearance is not as good as Panan's, I am good enough. Yes. Secondly, when I was a child, I traveled around 3 streets and 2 alleys, and I once raised a big turtle. Thirdly, my family also has a lot of money, and although it is not as good as Deng Tong, I can still live well. Fourthly, I am the most patient. He beat me for 100 times and never expected me to punch him back. Fifth, I have the most free time, otherwise I would not be so diligent. Godmother, you have done it yourself. When it is complete, I will thank you sincerely. Wang Po said, Official? You said you have all 5 things, but I know there is one more thing that disturbs you, and it probably won't work. Simon King said, Tell me, what one thing disturbs you? Wang Po said, Don't blame me, senior official. Frankly speaking, it is the most difficult thing to make money, even if it is 10 cents or 9 cents. It is also difficult to achieve. I know that you have always been stingy, and you are not willing to spend money carelessly. This is the only thing that bothers you. Simon King said, This it's easy, I just listen to your words. Wang Po said, If the high official is willing to give money, I have a clever plan. I need to ask the high official to meet this girl. Simon King said, What good plan does Duan have? Wang Po smiled and said, It's late today. Let's go back and discuss it in half a year and 3 months. Simon Xingyang said, Godmother, don't let me go. I will do what I want, and my kindness will be repaid. Wang Po laughed and said, The high officials are panicking again. Although I can't get into King Wucheng's temple with this plan, it is better than Sun Wuzi teaching female soldiers. He will catch you 9 times out of 10. I will tell you today, the background of this female child is that although she is of low birth, she is extremely talented. She is good at playing and singing, can play needlework, sing songs from hundreds of schools of thought, and knows everything about backgammon. Her nickname is Jinlian, her maiden name is Pan, and she was originally from Nanmen. The daughter of Pantai was sold to Zhang Die's family to learn how to play and sing. Later, because the wealthy family was old, she sent him away and made her his wife for free without asking for a penny from Wuda. This daughter had no leisure time, so she often went over to spend time with him when she had nothing to do. Sit down, when he has something to do. He comes to ask me to take care of him. He also asks me to be his godmother. Wu Jie goes out early these 2 days. If a high-ranking official wants to do this, he will buy a piece of blue silk, a piece of white silk, and a piece of white silk. Then I used 10 taels of good cotton and gave them all to me. But I walked over and asked him to borrow a calendar date, and asked him to pick a good date and ask a tailor to do it. If he saw me saying this, he would pick a date, and not if he is willing to do it with me. The matter will be over. If he happily says, I will do it for you. If I don't ask a tailor, this will be enough. I will ask him to do it, and he will sew it for me. This light will be divided into 2. If he comes over, I will arrange some wine, food and snacks for him to eat at noon. If he says it is not convenient, he will definitely go to home to do it, and the matter will be over. when he eats without saying anything. There are 3 points of light. You didn't come on this day, until the third day, around noon. You dressed up neatly, and with a cough as a sign. You shouted in front of the door, "Why haven't you seen Wang Ganyang for days? I'll buy some tea. I will come out and invite you to sit in the room and have tea." If he gets up and goes back when he sees you, can't I hold him back? The matter was settled. If he sees you coming in and does not move, the light will be fourfold. When I sat down, I said to my daughter, "This is the official who donated my clothes. I'd rather kill him than I exaggerate the many benefits of officials, and you show off their pointers. If he does not come to solicit and agree, the matter will be over. If he agrees to talk to you, this light will be 5 points." I then said, "But it's hard for this lady and me to do this. I will kill your 2 donors, one for the money and the other for the effort. It's not that we are separated from each other. It's rare that this lady is here, and the official can be the master and water the lady's hands. Then you take out the money and ask me to buy it. If he leaves, should I hold him back?" The matter was settled. If he does not move, things will be easy to accomplish, and this light will be 6 points. But I took the money and said to him before leaving the house, "My dear wife, please sit down with me. If he gets up and goes home, won't I be able to stop him?" The matter was settled. If he didn't get up and get better, the light would be 7 points. After I put the things I bought on the table, I said, "Madam, please go and clean up your life, and have a glass of wine. It's rare for this official to waste money." He refused to eat at the same table with you, so he left and the matter was settled. If he didn't get up, then the matter would be fine again. The light would be 8 points. When he was full of wine and was talking about entering Hong Kong, I reasoned that the wine was gone and asked you to buy it again. You took the money and asked me to buy wine and fruits to go with the wine. I closed the door and locked you 2 in the room. If he is anxious and runs away, the matter will be over. If he is dragged to the door by me and is not anxious, the light will have 9 points and only 1 point will be lost. It's just that this is difficult. When the official is in the room, you can say a few sweet words, but don't get angry and disturb things with your hands and feet. I won't care about you at that time. You first put your sleeves down on the table and put down a pair of chopsticks. Then, you just picked up the chopsticks and put your hands on his feet to pinch them. If he gets into trouble, I will come to rescue him. This matter is over, and it will never happen again. If he remains silent, the matter would be very clear. This is just perfect. How can you thank me?" Simon King was overjoyed after hearing this and said, "Although you can't go to Lingyan Pavilion, Godmother, this plan of yours is a great one," Wang Po said. "But don't forget the 10 taels of silver you promised me." Simon King said, "Just eat a piece of orange peel. And don't forget Daunting Lake. When will this plan be possible for my godmother?" Po said, "Only tonight. There will be a reward for coming." Now, while Wu Die has not returned, I went over to ask him for the calendar date and tell him in detail. "Please send someone to bring the silk and cotton. Don't be late." Simon King said, "Goddess, this is my business. How dare you break your promise?" So he said goodbye to Mrs. Wang, left the tea shop, and went to the street to buy 3 pieces of silk and 12 ounces of pure water. The family asked Daener to wrap it up in a felt bag and send it to Mrs. Wang's house. Wang Po happily accepted it and sent the boy back. Exactly, when clouds and rain in Wushan will come, don't let King Xiang build the Chu Tower. Illustrations from the Chongzhen edition of The Plum and the Golden Ping. Dingwang Wang Po accepted bribes. At that moment, Mrs. Wang collected the silk and cotton, opened the back door, and walked past Wu's family. The woman then went to sit upstairs. Wang Po said, "Why don't you just have tea with a poor family in the past 2 days?" The woman said, "It's just that I have been unhappy these days and I am too lazy to walk around." Wang Po said, "Madam, I have a calendar day at home, so I can take a look at it. I want a day to make clothes." The woman asked, "What kind of clothes will my godmother make?" Wang Po said, "It's because I'm sick and in pain, and I'm afraid things will be ups and downs for a while, and my son is not at home." The woman said, "Why is the eldest brother missing all the time?" Wang Po said, "That guy was out with a guest, and he didn't hear any news from him. I'm getting more and more worried every day. The woman asked, how old is the eldest brother this year? Wang Po said, that guy is 17 years old. The woman said, why don't you find a marriage with him and marry your godmother? Wang Po said, because of this, there is no one in the family. Sooner or later, I will take care of him when I am struggling to make ends meet. Find someone else, wait for that guy to come, then ignore it. Seeing that I am only wheezing and coughing day and night, my body is broken. I can't sleep. I am only in pain, so I have to prepare some clothes for death. It is rare for a rich official. I often have tea in a poor family, but when I see a doctor in the house, by a maid, and talk about my marriage, I see that I am so responsible and take care of me, and all matters begin small. I also donated a set of clothes for my death, including silk on the outside and inside. Everything is complete, and there is a lot of good cotton. I have kept it at home for more than a year, but I can't make it. I feel that it is hard to make a living this year, and I don't want to catch up with the leap month again. Taking advantage of the 2 days of idleness, I have to make something, but be blocked by the tailor. I just have a busy life. I don't want to do it. I can't tell you how hard it is. The woman smiled and said, I'm afraid I'm not satisfied with what I did. If you don't mind the time, I'll have nothing to do these days. How about I make love with my godmother? After hearing this, the old woman laughed and said, if you can do it with your hands, I will be fine even if I die. I have heard for a long time that my wife is good at needlework, but I just don't dare to come to the Prime Minister. The woman said, this why not? Since you have promised to be your godmother, you must make love with your godmother. Give the calendar to someone to pick the good day of the zodiac, and then I will take action. Wang Po said, I don't know, my lady. You have hundreds of poems and songs. You don't know much. How can you give someone to read the calendar? The woman smiled and said, my family has been out of school since childhood. The mother-in-law said, easy to say, easy to say. She took the calendar and handed it to the woman. The woman took it in her hand, looked at it once, and said, tomorrow is a bad day. And the day after tomorrow will not be good. And it will not be the day of tailoring until the day after tomorrow. Wang Po took the calendar with her hand and hung it on the wall. He said, if the lady is willing to have sex with me, it will be a little lucky star. Why choose a day? I have also told people that tomorrow is a bad day. I only want to make clothes on a day and don't use a bad day. I don't care about him, the woman said. It's good to wear old clothes for your birthday. Wang Po said, since I am willing to make it and I am brave, I just want to start tomorrow, and I will do it at Han's house. The woman said, why don't you come over and do it? Wang Po said, even though I am old, I still want to see how my wife is doing, and I am afraid that there will be no one in the family. The woman said, since that's what I said, I will come over after dinner tomorrow. The old woman thanked her very much and went downstairs, replied to Ximon King that night, and agreed to come the day after tomorrow. There was no words to say that night. Early the next morning, Mrs. Wang did eat the room, prepared her sewing, arranged tea, and waited at home. Let's say that Wu Die had breakfast and went out on his own with a load on his back. The woman hung up the curtain, told Yinger to look after the house, and walked through the back door to Mrs. Wang's house. The woman was so happy that she went into the room and sat down. Then she ordered a cup of walnut and pine nut tea and ate it with the woman. After wiping the table clean, he took out 3 pieces of silk. The woman measured the length, cut it completely, and began to sew it up. The old lady looked at it and couldn't help but cheer. What a trick! I have lived for 60 or 70 years, and I have never seen such a good needle in my eyes. He was treated to wine and food, and a bowl of noodles was served to the woman. After sewing for a while, it would be late next time, so I packed up my life and went home. Just as Wu Die's lad came in, the woman pulled the curtain down. When Wu Die entered the room, he saw his wife's face was slightly red and asked, where are you coming from? The woman replied, it's the lady in the next room who asked me to make some clothes for the funeral and arrange some wine, food and snacks for me during the day. You don't want to eat what he has. We also have other things to do. He asked you to make clothes, and you came back to eat some snacks. If it's not worth it, just mess with him. When you do it again tomorrow, bring some money with you and buy some food and wine to repay him as a gift. As the saying goes, distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors, so don't lose your favor. If he refuses to give you back the gift, then you have to take your life to come home and just pay him back. Exactly. The mother's cage is designed to be deep, and the young man is ignorant and ignorant. Bringing money to buy wine to reward a treacherous person, but giving away his wife. After hearing what Wu Die said, the woman had nothing to say that night. After dinner the next day, Wu Die went out to carry the burden, and Wang Po came over to greet him. The woman went to his house, took out some living things, and sewed them together. Wang Po hurriedly ordered tea and came to have tea with him. Seeing that it was noon, the woman took out 300 coins from her sleeve and said to Wang Po, "Goddess, I will buy you a glass of wine." Wang Po said, "Ah, there is such a truth. I'm sorry, when my wife is living here, how can she pay for it? She will be hurt if she doesn't eat the wine and food." The woman said, "But it's the stupid man who ordered the slave to come. If my godmother comes to see her, she will just kill her. Go home and do what you want to do to your mother." After hearing this, the old woman said, "You know what happened. Since my wife said this, I will accept it." The old woman was afraid of disturbing the matter, so she added use money to buy good wine and food, and treat each other with hospitality. The judge heard, "You are a very delicate woman in the world, but you can be manipulated 10 or 9 times by small things." The mother-in-law arranged wine, food and snacks and ate with the woman. After sewing for a while, I saw how late it was and returned home with many thanks. Stop talking. After breakfast on the third day, Mrs. Wang went out alone. Then she walked past the back door and called out, "Madam, I'm brave." The woman answered from upstairs, "I'm waiting for you." The 2 servants after seeing her, she came to Wang Po's room and sat down, taking out her life to sew. Needless to say, the old lady ordered tea. The woman looked at her sewing until round noon. But Simon Kingba didn't arrive that day, so he walked towards Cixi Street, neatly dressed, carrying 3 to 5 taels of silver and a Sajin fan in his hand. When he arrived at Mrs. Wang's door, he coughed and said, "Wang Qinyang, why haven't you seen me for days?" The old woman looked at the subject and said, "Who is calling me?" Simon King said, "It's me." The old woman rushed out. After looking at it, he said with a smile, "I just want to know who it is. It turns out to be a high-ranking official. You came just in time. Please come into the house and have a look." He dragged Simon King into the room with his sleeves and said, to the woman humanity said, "This is the official who donated the clothes and materials to me." Simon King opened his eyes and looked at the woman, a servant girl with green clouds, a pink face full of spring, wearing a white shirt, a pink skirt, and a blue armor, making clothes in the room. Seeing Simon King coming, he lowered his head. Simon King quickly bent forward and sang. The woman immediately gave up her life and returned the blessing. Wang Po then said, "It's rare for an official to make silk and silk for an old man. He has kept it at home for more than a year and has never been able to make it. It's a shame that the lady next door took the initiative to make it with me. It's really a cloth machine and it seems to be a good needle and thread. The sewing is so good and dense. It's really rare. Senior official, come here and take a look." Simon King picked up the clothes and looked at them. He cheered and said, "This lady has such good sewing skills, means a magical method." The woman lowered her head and smiled. "Officials, stop joking." Simon King asked Wang Po, "Godmother, don't dare to ask. Whose house is this lady from?" Wang Po said, "Guess." Simon King said, "How can a villain guess that?" Wang Po laughed and said, "Official, please sit down. I'll tell you." Then Simon King sat down opposite the woman. The woman said, "It's good for the officials to know. You walked under the eaves that day and beat me just right." Simon King said, "It was the one who beat me on the bull at the front of the door that day. I don't know whose house it is." "Madam." The woman lowered her head and said with a smile, "The Japanese slaves accidentally collided with each other. Don't blame me." Simon King responded quickly, "I don't dare." Wang Po said, "This is the one, but this is Madam Wu from Jianbi." Simon King said, "That's it. I've lost my sight." Wang Po looked at the woman and said, "Madam, do you recognize this official?" The woman said, "I don't know, Po," Z said. "This official is a rich man in this county. The county magistrate also associates with him. He is called Simon Dogwanren. His family has tens of millions of money, and they open a medicine shop in front of the county gate. The family's money exceeds the Beidou. The rice is rotten into granaries. The yellow ones are gold, the white ones are silver, the round ones are beads. The shining ones are treasures. There are also horns on the heads of rhinos and tusks in the mouths of elephants. His eldest wife, who is also the matchmaker I am talking about, is Wu, a young lady from 1,000 families, is born with hundreds of talents." He asked, "How come a high-ranking official can only have tea with a poor family?" Simon King said, "It's just that the little girl in the family has been appointed by a family, and she has no time to come." Z said, "Eldest sister, who is married, why don't you ask me to go to the matchmaker?" Simon King said, "The family of Chen Jingji, the in-law of Admiral Yang, a member of the 800,000-strong Imperial Army in Tokyo, has been married. His son Chen Jingji is only 17 years old and is still in school. No, I also asked my godmother to be a matchmaker. He has a one sister-in-law who comes to ask for a wife. I also asked sister-in-law Zhu, who sells green flowers at home, to work with me in Baoshan to talk about the marriage. If my godmother is willing to go, tomorrow we will have tea, and I will send someone to invite you." The old woman laughed and said, "I am fooling the high-ranking officials. The matchmaker, were all raised by bitches, and they didn't have me when they wanted to get married. How can a well-fed man be willing to take advantage of an old man? As the saying goes, when you have a good job, you should be good at what you do. When I get married tomorrow, I will mess around for 3 days and 5 days, pick up some favors, go around, and beg for a table and a half. That's serious. How can you fight with others?" The two said one after another. The mother-in-law only praised Simon King and made false noises, so the woman lowered her head and sewed. The water nature is always female, and the carrier often steals from outsiders. The golden lotus heart loves Simon King, but the lustful spring heart is not free. Illustrations from the Chongzhen edition of The Plum and the Golden Ping, setting a trap for the prodigal son to pick him up privately. Simon King was overjoyed to see Jin Lian affectionately, and wished they could get married. Wang Po then went to order 2 cups of tea, handed one to Simon King and the other to the woman, and said, "Madam, please treat the officials to some tea." Zhuan looked at Simon King again, touched his face with his hand, and said, "Simon King already has 5 points of light. Since ancient times, it has been said that tea is the matchmaker, and wine is the matchmaker." Wang Po then said, "If the official doesn't come, I don't dare to go to the house to invite him." One of them happened to meet by chance, and the two came at the right time. As the saying goes, a guest can't bother to hosts. The official just pays. Yes, this lady has contributed so much that I have to kill you to benefactors. It's not that I have different pots, but it's rare that this lady is here. The official can be the master of me, spend some money to buy some wine and food, and have a good relationship with me. Madam, how about watering your hands?" Simon King said, "You can't even see me here. There is money here." He took it out of the eggplant bag, about 1 or 2 pieces, and handed it to Wang Po to prepare food and drinks. The woman said, "Don't worry about it." She couldn't get up as she said it. Wang Po took the money and said before leaving the house, "I'd like to have you sit with the official, madam, and I'll come right away." The woman said, "My godmother is excused." But she didn't move. Wang Po then went out, leaving Simon King and the woman in the house. Simon King didn't move his eyes, only looking at the woman. The old lady also glanced at Simon King secretly, and went about her daily life with her head down. Not long after, Grandma Wang bought some fat goose and roast duck, cooked meat and fresh cream, and delicate fruits. When she came back, she filled the dishes and placed them on the table in the room. Looking at the woman, she said, "Madam, please clean up your life, and have a glass of wine." The woman said, "You eat with the officials, but you are not a slave." The woman said, "It's just for me to drink water with you." Why do you say this? Putting the plate of food in front of them, the three of them sat down and poured the wine. Simon King picked up the wine cup and said, "My godmother, please treat me to a few glasses of wine." The woman thanked her and said, "I don't have enough food for you to eat." Wang Po said, "I heard that my wife drank a lot, so please enjoy 2 glasses of wine, cup." The woman took the wine in her hand and wished each of them blessings. Simon King picked up the chopsticks and said, "My godmother, help me persuade my wife to get some vegetables." The woman picked out the dishes and handed them over to the woman to eat. After pouring the wine 3 times in a row, the woman went to boil the wine. Simon King said, "I don't dare to ask. How young is the lady?" The woman bowed her head and replied, 25 years old. Simon King said, "The lady comes to the same Jiang as a Lily family member, and she is also a dragon in Jiangshan. He was on the 15th day of the 8th month." The woman responded again, "Compare the sky to the earth, and kill the slave family." Wang Po then interjected, "What a fine lady, 100 clever, and her work is not in vain. I have a good hand in needlework. There are hundreds of schools of thought, Chuanglu chess, folding tiles, Dao and Chinese characters. I can write 1 stroke easily," Simon King said, "but where can I ask for it?" Wang Po said, "I'm not talking about right and wrong. Senior officials, there are many people in the house. How can I find someone who looks like a lady?" Simon King said, "It's just like this. It's hard to describe. It's just that the villain's life is poor, and he has never found a good one in his family." Wang Po said, "The high official is the first lady. It's fine." Simon King said, "Don't talk about it. If my late wife was still alive, she would have no owner and the house would be empty. Now there are only 3 to 5 or 7 people around to eat, and they don't care about anything," the mother-in-law said noisily. "Even I have forgotten," Simon King said. "I can't tell. Although my first wife, Mrs. Chen, is from a humble background, she is very talented and can do everything for me. Unfortunately, it has been 3 years since he passed away. Now that I am married to this lowly person, he is often sick. He does not care about anything, and everything at home is in chaos. Why does the villain just walk out? When he is at home, he has to vomit, angry." The mother-in-law said, "Sir, please don't blame me for saying it bluntly. Your first lady and my current lady are not as skilled as this lady in needlework or as personable." Simon King said, "Even my servants are not. This lady is so charming." The lady smiled and said, "Guardian, why don't you invite me to tea when you raise a foreigner who lives on the East Street?" Simon King said, "She just sings slow songs." Zhang Shichun, I saw that he was from Luki and I didn't like him, the mother-in-law said again. "Guan, you and Li Zhao and Gulan have been together for a long time." Simon King said, "This man is already married at home, if you get it. When he becomes the head of the family, he will be registered as his wife." Wang Po asked, "How do you get along well with second sister Zhuo?" Simon King said, "Don't talk about Zhuo Daiwer. I also married and had a 3rd wife at home. I got a baby recently. It was a minor illness, but it's gone," the mother-in-law said. Yeah. If there is someone as popular as the lady, come to the house and say, 'Is it okay?' Simon King said. "My parents, it's all gone. I'm saying it myself. Who dares to say no?" Wang Po said, "I'm just saying it. I'm so anxious to find someone so popular," Simon King said. "What can I do? You only hate me. The relationship between husband and wife is weak, so they won't bump into each other." Simon King said to his mother-in-law one after another. Wang Po said, "We were just in time to have some wine, but it was gone. Officials, please don't blame me. Why don't you buy a bottle of wine to eat?" The mother-in-law said, "Godmother, take it. When you want to eat, just take it. If there is too much, the godmother will take it away." The mother-in-law thanked her and stood up. When I looked at the pink head, after 3 hours of drinking, my heart was roused, and my words were full of meaning. I just lowered my head and did not get up. Exactly, love between the eyes and eyebrows is not over, and the marriage coincides with the romance. Wang Po is greedy and has no other skills. She just talks and talks.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.